Hello everyone, this is Dave from Dave's Recent Things. Dare I say it? Back to school. Yes, back to school wreaths. That is the topic for today, and that is the video for today. I am giving you three back to school wreaths for you, whether you're a student, whether you're a teacher, a professor maybe, or just a trainer. It is back to school week here on my channel. Why don't I just get started and I'll show you how I put them all together. Sorry about the sound quality right in the beginning. That was horrible. I guess my microphone wasn't working, but let's just get back to the video. Look at all this fun school supply stuff. I have pencils, colored pencils, glue, little beads, highlighters, crayons, stick glues, those little notes. I can't name them so quickly, but I'm going to be using all these supplies today to create 3 back to school wreaths that you can use and create on your own. DIY number 1, wreath number 1. For my first wreath, I am using this wooden artistic board and these wooden letters. And I'm going to spell out the teacher's name. And I'm just doing a dry run right now to make sure everything fits perfectly. And I'm just going to clip the I to make a little apostrophe because there wasn't one. Let's add some tape down on the corners, and I'm going to paint the center of that wooden panel black. So I'm just going to grab acrylic paint and a paintbrush, really just give it good coverage, and then I'm just going to take that tape off and set this aside to really let it dry. The look I was going for was kind of chalkboard-ish look, so this little artistic panel is perfect. And to create the letters, I'm just going to paint them with acrylic paints. These are just little wooden letters I got at the dollar store. You can see I got a whole bunch on my fingers. Nobody ever said crafting was clean. And from the Dollar Tree, I got this little apple box, and I thought this is going to be perfect. I'm going to take apart those little apple pieces there, and with acrylic paint, I'm just going to paint those red and green. I'm drawing the stems on right now, and you can see I have my red acrylic paint with my green acrylic paint. And the first thing I'm going to do is paint that red on there. Look at this vibrant red. I think this one is called Christmas red or bright Christmas red, something like that. It has to do with Christmas red, and it's the perfect color. And then I'm going to come in with a little bit of a darker green for the stem of our apple, and then you'll see me in a little bit. I'm going to add that lighter green for the leaf of the apple. And these do take a couple of coats. It is wood, and it does soak up that acrylic paint really, really quickly. So everything has 2 coats of paint on it. Now we can start with our wreath base. This is an 18-inch wire wreath frame. You can get them at either Dollarama if you're in Canada or Dollar Tree in the States. And I just got this 10-inch by 10-yard metallic Deco mesh from Amazon. This is what we're going to be using today. To start off, I have a cable tie and my unwrapped piece of Deco mesh or roll. I am going to be using the inner wire plus those 2 inner spaces, so the innermost space and the middle one, but first I'm going to anchor on that crossbar. All I'm going to do is take that cable tie and I'm going to feed it through, but I'm not going to feed it through tightly. You want to keep it loose, just kind of hanging there like I'm showing here. Then we're going to take our Deco mesh, we're going to crunch it up like we do the ruffle method at the very end, lift up that wreath form because we're going to attach it from the bottom, and then we're going to feed the Deco mesh through the cable tie. Once that's fed through, you can pull down and really tighten that. I'm going to flip it over, chop off the excess, and that creates our anchor. This is the pull through method. It's a really great method. It cuts down on the fraying and the cutting, really. There's only a couple of cuts per roll. Like I said, we are going to take that factory edge, which is the nice finished edge, put it through the first hole, and then the second factory edge, put it through the middle hole. With your left hand and your right hand, you want to pull them nice and even. So you have a nice even split down the middle, and that wire goes right to the middle of our Deco mesh. Here's a little trip. Here's a little tip for you. There's 6 sections and I have one 10-yard bundle of deco mesh, which means you have 5 feet per section if you want to even it out. What I usually do is take a cable tie and I mark it. So here I'm going to measure out my 5 feet on my deco mesh roll. Once I hit that 5-foot mark, I'm just going to take that cable tie and just pretty much put it in there. I'm not going to tie it. I'm not going to close it off. I'm just going to feed it through the deco mesh, keep it there. Then I'm going to roll it back up, and then I'm going to go back and I'm going to start doing this pull through method. And you'll see a little bit later on, once you hit that cable tie, you know you've gone through 5 feet, and then you're going to do 5 feet for each section. So how I do this with my left hand, I have it anchored down, and then I'm feeding with my right. And I'm using both hands to make sure the deco mesh is nice and even. That wire that we're pulling it through, that's going to be right down the middle of your deco mesh. And I usually just place my wrist right on the wire frame to hold the frame in place. Otherwise, everything just starts moving around. And you can see our mark of that cable tie, which is our 5 feet, is almost up, and we're almost done that first section. I'm just going to take that cable tie out, and then I'm just going to pull through and kind of fluff it up a little bit. This is just the beginning. This is just the start, so we don't have to do too much fluffing now. We'll do that towards the end. To come to our second section, I'm going to grab that ruler again, and I'm going to measure out that 5-foot marker as well. So how do I get to the 5 feet? Again, I have a 30-foot roll or 10-yard roll, which is roughly 5 feet per section. Moving on to the second section, all I'm going to do is feed through the same factory edges on that new wire, and I'm going to start the same process over and over again. I'm pulling the deco mesh through with my right and holding it with my left. We have another 5-foot marker coming up. I take out that cable tie and I finish off my section number 2. And I just repeat the same process over and over again for each section in that middle wreath frame. It's a little sped up now. It doesn't go this fast in real life. I wish it did. But here we are, and we are just finishing off our first roll, and we're going to anchor it off like we did the first one. You're going to feed a cable tie through. Don't pull it all the way. Ravel that or gather that deco mesh, feed it through the cable tie, pull it nice and tight, chop off the excess deco mesh and the excess cable tie, and we have our first row all done. I'm just going to go around a little bit because there's a couple of sections that didn't seem too even, and if that happens, that's totally fine. You just go back and you even it out. To start our second row, we are going to use the second outermost wire and a crossbar to first start our anchor. So this is the exact same method we just did a couple of times with that first row, and we're going to do it again with the second row just to start it off. And we're going to go again underneath and attach that deco mesh, pull that cable tie nice and tight, and then just chop off the excess and grab that excess deco mesh to clean it up a little bit as well. And again, we're doing that 5 feet per section, feeding it through the middle space and the outside space. I'm going to mark off my 5 feet, and then I'm just going to pull those factory clean edges through the middle and the outside spacing. Gathering with my left, feeding it with my right, making sure it's nice and even all the way through as I pull it. And then we're coming to our end of the 5 feet with that cable tie. Beautiful, looks nice. You can kind of see it filling in now, and we're going to move on onto the second section of our outer row. And again, we just follow the same procedure over and over again, feeding those factory edges through those holes or separations or spaces, whatever you want to call it, until we come to the end, and then we're going to tie it off like we did the previous couple of times, grabbing that cable tie, gathering the deco mesh, feeding it through. If I can feed that cable tie through, it looks like I'm having difficulty. Here we go. We're going to gather up that deco mesh, feed it through, pull nice and tight. And there we go. We have finished our wreath. We're going to chop off all of that excess, turn it over, and now we can just make sure all of our deco mesh is nice and even. Look at the color, nice and bright. It's nice and full. Let's get on to the decoration. The first thing I'm going to do is make sure everything is dry. Then I'm going to glue on that beautiful little apple. I do throw a little Mod Podge on the apple afterwards. It's a glossy coat just to make it nice and shiny. And I'm using my glue gun to attach all my letters onto my little faux chalkboard. I think this came out so cute, and I was so happy with it. To attach it to our wreath frame, I'm just going to use pipe cleaners and dabs of glue right on the back side. And I'm going to throw a whole bunch of glue on there so it doesn't move around, and let that dry completely. Here we are with our sign, and I'm trying to figure out where I want it to go. And I say to myself, you know what, let's do something different. Let's throw it in the middle. I always put it off to the side. So here we go. I threw it off in the middle, and then I'm going to feed those pipe cleaners through right at the back, and I'm going to twist them onto the wire. That's going to attach our sign, or our little chalkboard, I should say, right to the front. And a little tip for me to you is I like to use a little bit of hot glue, make sure those little twist ties don't come undone or don't move. So I just throw a little bit down, let that dry, and once it's dry, now comes even more fun. Adding our embellishments on. Now, I've added on some scissors, some hearts, some colorful beads on there previously, and now I added a little crayon box. And what I want to do is almost have it with the illusion that the crayons are exploding and coming all over the wreath. So I'm just adding a whole bunch of crayons on there with hot glue, just gluing those down, coming out of the box and then all around our wreath. You can see I have a bottle of glue on the wreath as well with a glue stick, the scissors at the bottom. So I just really had a good time with this, gluing everything down. And then of course our last crayon goes on from our crayon explosion on this wreath, and I am smiling ear to ear because I just love how this turned out. That little chalkboard with Mr. Lopano's name right in the middle, our crayon explosion, our ABC letters, those little colorful beads, and of course all of those school supplies with that apple. I just think this is such a fun, colorful wreath for the teacher's door, welcoming kids into the 2023 class session. What do you guys think of this wreath? It screams classroom to me. I just love it, and I hope you do as well. We are moving on to wreath number 2, DIY number 2. This one is a little bit easier. It's a little bit less in your face, a little bit less colorful, I should say. And I started off thinking I was going to use all these school supplies, and I really didn't. All I ended up using was the color pencils, that little plaque in the center, and the welcome sign. I had this whole plan in my head, but it just kind of, it changed, as we often change our minds while we're crafting. I'm starting off with that welcome sign. I didn't want it in the stainless steel color, so I'm giving it a good coat of white acrylic paint along with the plaque. I'm just priming the welcome sign first, and I'm adding 2 coats of white acrylic paint to that plaque as well. I'm going to let everything dry, and then once it's dry, I had this idea of putting paint splatters all over the sign. So here I am with my pencil just drawing it out, and then I'm going to come in with some blue paint, and I'm going to paint on those paint splashes or splashes or splotches, whatever you want to call it, splatters. I chose to use blue. I'm adding this red as well. There's going to be a green, and of course you see that lavender color that I'm adding on right now. Once I get that all completed on there, I'm going to add a little more paint splatters because I think it needs a little bit more in all of my little colors. Then once that's done, I'm going to let that completely dry. I'm dry now, and I've added a coat of Mod Podge as well to protect everything. Now it comes time to add our little pencil crayons. So these are pencil crayons that I just got from the dollar store, and they come in all these different colors. And all I'm doing is I'm taking the very ends of them, adding some hot glue on there, and then I'm just gonna glue it down. I'm gonna do a little roundabout or a little spray, whatever you wanna call it, of all pencil crayons. And I start with the 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and 3 o'clock positions. And then I come in and kind of fill it in. So here you can see I'm doing my starting points just so it's nice and balanced and even. And then in between each of those, I do another pencil crayon as well. And these are maybe about an inch, inch and a half coming off of the edge of that little plaque. I'm finished the top, and now I'm going to continue on doing that same method right at the bottom, adding those pencil crayons right on there. I have my second pack. These are the same ones, and now I'm going to bring them in just a little bit, probably 3 inches. You don't have to do 3 inches if you don't want. You can do a couple, or you can do them all the same length. I wanted to do varying lengths just to add a little bit of interest to our wreath. I spray painted our welcome sign yellow, and I'm going to attach that on there using some of this cement glue. So this cement glue I just got at the hardware store. It adheres to metal and wood. If you're going to use it, this stuff does smell bad. So please open your window, and then once I adhere it on there, I'm just going to put a little protective layer on top of that and a couple of sketchbooks to let that dry. As soon as it's all dry, I'm going to twist a paper. What do you call that? A pipe cleaner, not a paper. Oh my Lord, all these school supplies are driving me crazy with the names. But here we go. I'm just going to attach this on the back. That's going to be our little hanger for this wreath right at the back. And again, more hot glue to make sure it doesn't go anywhere. Nice and secured. Here it is hanging on my door, and I just love how simple this is. We still have a nice colorful display welcoming the students and welcoming the teachers back into the school with that beautiful welcome sign. And here we go, DIY number 3, wreath number 3. And this time around, I'm actually going to be using school supplies. So I'm using these ruled lined pieces of paper, this hanging decor wood disc, and another smaller size artistic panel, along with some other pencil crayons, pencils, erasers. And everything is coming from the dollar store, so it's nice and inexpensive. I'm starting off painting our small little wood panel, all black top, sides. I'm going to let that completely dry off to the side before I start painting my yellow disc here. And this one, I'm just covering it all in yellow, and I do end up doing 2 full coats on this wooden disc of that beautiful sunshiny yellow color. I'm going to let everything dry before I move on, and then I'm going to use these little oil-based pens. So it's oil-based paint, but it comes in a pen form, and I thought this would be really cool to add back to school looking like chalk on a chalkboard. What do you guys think? Of course, I do go in doing a second coat of that just to brighten it up a little bit, but I just thought it looked so great. Here we are going to use our paper. This is just lined paper. I don't know how many pieces of a paper, that I used or cut up or anything, but my first round I'm going to cut up in half, and then I'm going to fold the paper in thirds, but I'm not going to do it evenly. You can see I'm kind of doing it haphazardly. It's not even, and that's kind of the look that I want to go for. I am going to do a round little outside edge here. You can kind of see it starting now. I'm just going to glue down that piece of paper right onto the backside of that yellow painted disc. And I'm just putting a little bit of hot glue right at the edge, and I'm just going to line it up so it's nice and even. You can kind of see where I'm going with this from the back side. I'm making sure it's overlapped so there's not too many spaces. And if there's a space, I'm just going to add a little glue down with that paper and cover it up. Here is our first row all done, and I'm just loving that yellow. For our second row, I'm actually going to come in with a full-size sheet of paper, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to fold it in thirds, and then I'm just going to glue it down, overlapping the shorter first row. And again, all I'm doing is I'm gluing it down with hot glue, making sure it's nice and even all the way around, gluing down the last couple of ones here. I'm just loving how this is turning out. I love the look of the paper all the way around and that bright yellow center. For this, I'm going to glue down our back to school sign using that hot glue, that infamous hot glue that we all love. And for my little apple, I want to make it 3D. So I'm using one of those Dollar Tree little blocks. I'm going to push it down right there, add a little hot glue, and then I'm going to attach it to my yellow disc. So now we have it in 3D. And everything else I'm just kind of placing down. I'm not gluing anything down yet. I'm just going to put it all down, see how I like it. I always call it a dry run. Once I do that, I take my hot glue and I start gluing everything down. As you can see, I've glued everything down now. I've added a couple more erasers. And for the finishing touch, for those pieces of paper, they were a little bit flat, so I'm going to add some depth and some interest, and I'm just going to crinkle up those pages a little bit, and I'm going to do the exact same thing for the outside layer as well. I'm just crinkling it up with my fingers, doing the last little touches here, and once I turn it around, I'm going to flatten it out a little bit again. I just love, love, love how this turned out. And on the back side, we're going to attach another piece of pipe cleaner to use as our hanger. Using that glue again and my little tool, making sure it's nice and secure. Before I flip it over, I'm going to make sure it's dry. And at the very end, we have our back to school wreath full of supplies. I just love, love, love this one. I will admit, this one is my favorite wreath out of the three of them. I don't know if you have a favorite wreath. Let me know in the comments down below. But I had so much fun making this wreath. And I just think to me, it is the one that puts a huge smile on my face. We have all our school supplies, our back to school sign, that crinkled paper. I am just in love with this wreath. Of course, we can't forget about the other wreaths we did today as well. This is our third one we've done in this video. And here is the second one using the pencil crayons and that welcome sign welcoming everybody into the classroom and into the school. And do you remember that first one still? I still do. This bright, colorful crayon explosion of our school supplies. I truly hope you had a great time watching me create these back to school wreaths today, because I know I had such a fun time and it brought back so many school memories. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can be notified every time I upload a new video. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye for now.